Hey everyone, it's great to see so many people here. It's really cool. My name's Ed. I'm the Director of Content at ChartMogul. And I just want to talk to you a bit about how, over the last couple of years, we've built an audience for ChartMogul that I believe and I truly think that is highly engaged. And I want to just take you through a few questions we've had along the way and some things that we've learned that actually we didn't expect in the beginning. So this is ChartMogul. It's a team that we're all incredibly proud of. The company was founded in 2014. We're based in Berlin, and we have other members across the world. And so I started, I was actually met Nick, the founder of ChartMogul, very early when they started their beta program, and came in really at day one from a product and engineering background with the challenge of building out a content strategy. So I wasn't entirely experienced in what this stuff means, but Nick felt that somebody with that kind of background was the right person to tackle growing ChartMogul as a thought leader and really developing the brand. So this is us basically on pretty much day one in our tiny office, and this is really like the goal of ChartMogul, and this hasn't really changed over the years that we've been doing business. Our goal is to help people build a better subscription business by using data to understand their customers and to grow their business. Fairly simple. And then, so I started on day one, and I went to Nick, and I was like, okay, so how do we do this? Like, I know roughly what content marketing is, and he said this thing to me, which at the time I didn't feel was particularly helpful, actually. But he said, all you need to do is keep producing amazing content. And I was like, well, okay, what does that mean? Like, practically, how do I start with this thing? We're starting from zero. Well, no, actually, it wasn't quite zero, because we had this thing, and you may have seen this. These things are flying around today. We have a lot more of them. But Nick had actually created this cheat sheet that helps people understand SaaS metrics. And it was, for a tiny company, actually hugely successful in the beginning. So this already had an audience, and I think it helped a lot of people understand these complex metrics that they need to calculate. So I was left with the challenge to kind of unpack the success of this and try and understand what made it work. So there's 5 key questions that I kind of had along the way here, and I want to tackle each of them really quickly just to tell you some learnings and to kind of give you a sense of where we were then and where we are now. And actually, I want to start at number 5, just to be a little unconventional. So the first one is, how do you become a thought leader, especially when you're starting at zero and you don't have a lot of knowledge on the topic? People expect you to kind of project to the world all of this expertise, but we didn't have a lot of expertise. Like, I was not a SaaS expert. And the first thing we learned there was actually, from the very early days, we had all these amazing customers. These guys are all tackling different problems in different spaces. These are brands that we all love. So why can't we lean on these guys and really tell their story to elevate ourselves? So that was what we did. We went out, we built a set of customer stories. You may recognize these guys. This is a thing we did with live chat to really tell the story of how they grew their business. And we were able to really leverage the expertise and the knowledge they had in the industry and build this really rich, high quality content from that. And like I said, we were not experts at the time in the field. We did a podcast series. So this is a piece that we did with the CEO of Zapier. These are all things where we're relying on the brand and the expertise of these other great businesses to build our own brand. So number 4, how do you measure success? Like, how do you understand whether what you're doing is actually the right thing? And I think this is probably one of the biggest questions in content marketing as a whole. Like, how do you know that what you're doing is working? The problem we had, and this was one of the main headaches for me in the beginning, is all these platforms that we publish on have all these different ways of telling you that you're successful or not, right? So Facebook has likes, other platforms here have upvotes, Medium has claps now. What is a clap? How am I supposed to understand whether that's successful for me or not? So we're kind of left with this question of, do we follow this? Or should we give up? Or should we chase page views? I'm sorry, that's a really bad joke. But actually, what we came back to here is what matters for us is engagement in this scenario. And if you look at this, like, which one of these would you rather have? Would you rather have 20 users that maybe read a tiny bit of your article and they close the tab because they don't finish it and they really have very little impact with your brand at all? Or would you rather have one person who comes along, they read the entire thing, they're fully engaged with it, they enjoy it, and they share it, and they subscribe to your newsletter, and they tell all their friends? I know exactly which one of those I would rather have. So that was like a really key realization for us. And then we were able to actually go and, from that decision, measure engagement. And this was really our compass metric in the early days, is like how many people are sharing, what's the sharing rate of these things that we publish? Because if we can understand that, it doesn't matter about the traffic or the reach that it gets. If we know that something's getting great engagement, there's huge potential further down the line to further boost the reach of that. So we're able to use these tools to measure the share rate. But one huge mistake we made here that I just want to share with you is, like, if you're going to measure this kind of thing, make sure you're actually measuring the whole picture. So for a long time here, we were measuring how many people were clicking a share button from our blog. And then we actually implemented a tool that allowed us to track copy-paste URL sharing. So somebody copies it and pastes it into their Slack team or something. And well, it turned out we were measuring like 2.3% of the total shares when we were just looking at the button. That's ridiculous. Like, we were making a kind of shudder to think the decisions that we were making based on that 2.3% of the complete picture. And then again, with quick wins, there's so many people out in the industry that tell you, do X to get Y results. And what we found is, like, we actually followed a lot of these in the early days, but they turn out to be exactly that. They are quick wins, and this is actually directly from our Google Analytics, from some growth hack that we did, and we just found that it didn't last. But actually, if you can focus on quality and build things that are evergreen, like this is from one piece of content here, all of the big hits that we have today were not big in the beginning, and if we can just add another one of these even once every month, that compounds, just like we all know and love MRR, which compounds as well. One more example here. So this was a top 3 blog posts on ChartMogul's blog when I looked. And I was like, okay, that's great. These are all like really successful posts for us. But at the time that I looked at this, all of these 3 top posts were over a year old. So we were publishing things every week, sometimes multiple articles, things that we're putting hours or days or even weeks of effort into. But the things that were the most popular at that time were like over a year old. And that was crazy to me. Because what does that mean in terms of the decisions you make, like day to day, in terms of what's succeeding and what's not, when you would have to think about something 12 months down the line as to whether like this thing's going to perform for us. Like, how do you even make decisions based on that? And actually, one analogy I really like, which I think about a lot now, is that in the early days, you're really trying to get this huge wheel spinning. And it's something that takes a ton of energy and effort to even move initially at the start. And it's really slow, and you feel like you're wasting a lot of effort to even get this thing moving. But once you can pick up momentum, it really starts picking up speed for you. And this huge heavy thing has a ton of momentum that once you really can pick up some speed, it will keep going and carry you along. And I think in the early days, it helps to think of this when you're putting a ton of effort into something that maybe doesn't yield immediate results. And some projects that we've done have been like that. So we do a podcast at ChartMogul that actually in the early days was not really that promising. We built like a small audience and we had some nice engagement, but it was by no means a success. But this is something we did from a kind of gut feeling, because we knew that it was the right thing to do and the people that were consuming it were engaged. And I guess that kind of raises a question that we still think about. It's like, when do you give up on that gut feeling? Like, you're doing something that you believe you should be doing, you're not seeing results. Like, how long do you wait for that? For us, I think the answer, I still don't think it's a perfect answer, but if you can measure, like I said, the engagement of what you do, and you see promise in the people that do consume what you produce, then that, to me, is like high potential for future performance. So number 3, how do you bring people back? How do you ensure that somebody comes to your site, and they maybe interact with your content, or they have some association with your brand? How do you bring them back? for us, one of our biggest strategies over the last 2 years has been to produce recurring content. And these are like series of blog posts, things like the podcast here that we have, that we've now built up this library of interviews with founders and SaaS influencers. And we've really found that like doing these things, these series, it kind of generates some expectation from the user that when they come back the next time, they're going to see another one. We put a lot of effort in the early days into Quora, answering all these questions in the SaaS space. And this was a series that we produced on our blog that was basically on a weekly basis. People would come back and there would be a new question. And Quora is still hugely successful for us today. We don't actually put a lot more kind of new effort into it, but it's still actually the #1 referrer for our site. Like, this is still paying us back today. The final thing I would say here is that in today's world, I really believe that we need to push things to people. And I want to be careful when I say that, because pushing, I think, without permission is dangerous, and it's actually the wrong thing to do. But we've slowly built up an email list. We have a newsletter that goes out every Friday. It's called SaaS Roundup. And the feedback that we get from this is people actually look forward to this thing at the end of the week. Or they like to sit down with a coffee on a Saturday morning and read SaaS Roundup. And I think if you can get people's permission and push things to them, they will almost thank you for that. But you need to have permission in the first place. Number 2, how do you stand out when content marketing, especially in SaaS, is so noisy and there's so much people still focusing on frequency today when, in my opinion, it's not really a viable strategy. For us, we kind of spend a bit of time looking at who we consider to be role models for us in the space. And I think there are, at least in the SaaS space, there are a few operators that are truly kind of inspirational for us. And I don't think there's any shame in looking at what these guys are doing and trying to emulate some of their success. So the first one would be Intercom, who I'm sure we all know. They have an amazing content team, editorial team, and the quality of what they produce is probably far beyond what we can even achieve right now. But having these guys as role models has really helped us to kind of put a focus on quality that we perhaps wouldn't have otherwise done. Secondly, this is crazy. I love this. This is an article by our friends at Typeform, who they produced the Star Wars Guide to Net Promoter Score. And I don't know if any of you have read this, but it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, the moment I saw this, I was like, what the... Someone's put like so much kind of passion and effort into this, and it's a huge piece with all of these illustrations and like custom animation work, and it's an 18-minute read. It's a huge thing. But this, for me, like as a bar for quality, these guys have gone way above anybody else. Imagine how many NPS articles are out there, but for me, this is the one that stuck out. So again, this is like Typeform is definitely like a role model for us. And so we went out and we did our own thing, kind of driven by curiosity. I spent a bit of time in China just for personal reasons in the last couple of years, and I kind of was curious about what the SaaS industry was like there. Nobody was really writing about that, but I went out and I spoke to some people and did some kind of research-based articles about what the scene looks like and how SaaS businesses in Europe might want to enter the Chinese market. There is no data to suggest that we should have pursued this as a topic. Like, again, it was a completely gut-feeling thing, driven by curiosity. And again, we've put countless hours into these analysis posts that you also might have seen. That, for me, the goal with these is to go so far beyond what the highest quality that's out there is, that it's almost like a no-brainer to share and to be wowed by this content. So we've done 4 of these 5 things, and I purposefully went backwards from number 5 just because the number 1 for me was more of a kind of like striking point, which is like, what's the purpose of all this? If you remember, like I turned up on day 1, I didn't really know like why or how to get started. And actually you have to kind of come back to this, the ChartMogul landing page, to really understand. And it was at this moment when I kind of realized, well, if the goal of our business is to help people build a better subscription business, like, why can't that be the goal for what we do in content at ChartMogul? Like, why can't we publish and write things that help people build a better subscription business? That it just kind of made sense, right? Because when we do these resources and cheat sheets that I talked about, well, aren't they also kind of helping people be better at building a subscription business? And isn't this also aligned with our product, which helps people do the same thing? And when we do this series of interviews, the goal is effectively the same. If we can achieve this, then we get this kind of alignment with our product that means that people really naturally kind of associate our brand with solving this problem. So for me, this is our overarching goal for content at ChartMogul. And when it comes to our attitude, I just picked a quote here that I really love, because I believe that our team here is driven by curiosity, and I think this is something that really resonates with me. So Matt Mullenweg, who's the founder of Automatic, said that if someone has those 4 things, work ethic, taste, integrity, and curiosity, I believe that you can learn anything in the world. And I really believe that. And just finally, I want to bring it back to our founder and CEO, Nick, who, when I was particularly lost and struggling to find some measurement for what we were doing, he told me that you should just create things you're insanely proud of. And actually, it might sound a bit cheesy, but it kind of makes sense as a fallback for when everything else seems to be failing, or you're kind of looking out there for some idea of success and you can't see it at all. Thanks.